Tech Talk Tuesday. Let's go, folks. Clock in. Talk to me. Tell me you're here. We'll do Tech Talk number 103 today. Tech Talk 103. Hey, Matt. Hey, Jackie. Charlie. Thank you, Charlie. You can count on Charlie. Ben. I'm going to look at some of these names before I get started. Hey, Chuck. I'll get a chance to read some of these names and say hi to y'all. Appreciate you checking in. Hey, Chuck. Hey, Ben. Hey, Sandy, Glenn, Alan. Appreciate you guys checking in with us. Great Tuesday here in Tennessee. Graham. Other people watching. Ben, you guys. Thank you, Steve. I wanted to take, hey, I got my Mitch Brown Monster shirt on today. I'm gonna tell you a little quick story about the Monster head so you guys can understand kind of how that happened and where I fit in. And hey, John, God bless you, man. Harry, Jason, John, Jack. Man, I'm blessed. Hey, Garen, you guys, thank you so much for coming on here and watching. I see. I'll get a couple more names. I just wanted to give you a shout out for clicking in. Tech Talk number 103, you guys. Check it out. Next week, 7 days from right now. 7 days from right now will be, hey, Robert, Daniel, our 2-year anniversary of 104 Tech Talks, Jason and Jerry, 104 Tech Talks in a row, 6 o'clock Eastern time, dead nuts, 6 o'clock, 6:01, 5:59, whatever. But I just wanted, hey, Ian, I wanted to tell you guys, Billy, Nate, I wanted to tell you guys, thank you so much for tuning in and staying consistent with this and following, because it's helping us grow this opportunity to share a long time with you guys. A lot of folks, I notice newbies on here that don't know who I am. They may have heard of me, or they just maybe roll right by and see this old guy talking about engines. But I wanted to, hey, Brian, Dave, Aaron, I wanted to share with you all that I consider myself a 4-stroke engine expert. Not the best, not the most knowledgeable, but I consider myself an expert. And not because I went to MIT or some engineering school or went to NASCAR college or anything, but the fact that we blew up a lot of parts over 40 or 50 years drag racing and learning about, I race cars and motorcycles and little cars and quarter midgets, and been working on engines from 50 cc's all the way to 900 cubic inches. As long as they have valves and camshafts, and springs and retainers and stuff, I'm sort of done it. I hadn't done all of them, but I've done a lot of them. So Milwaukee 8, that's my current genre that I enjoy working on, the Harleys, because it fits my lifestyle. When you look up in the dictionary and look up a typical Harley owner, it shows this guy right here, 66, going on 67 years old. I've had the Kawasaki Suzukis, I've had the Yamahas and the Hondas, and I understand all of those cool stuff, and I'm thankful that everybody has their brand that they love. I love that fact. And it's just like a baseball team and a football team we have, and a car, Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, whatever, Mercury, we have our favorite, and that's good. So I'm not really brand favored on one thing or the other. It's just that the Harley right now fits my genre because the most of it is made in America. It is supposedly an American-made V-twin. I love the power delivery. I love the power band, but this is not Tech Talk about Harleys. I'm sorry, if you're here just to learn about Harleys, that's okay. That's what I love. That's what I work on. But listen, this is about engines, how engines work, how to make more power. It fits everything like that. It fits everything from a mini bike to a pro mod car. I love the turbocharged versions, supercharged versions, the nitrous versions. I love the pro stock versions. I just love how engines work, and I would love to make some more power. You guys, hey Kevin, hey Scott, you guys that are into one particular genre, this is all-encompassing because this matters to everybody. If you have a pro stock car or a cup car, or you have a motorcycle, a Kawasaki or a Harley Davidson or whatever. I'm not a 2-stroke guy. That's not enough strokes for me to get the work done. I love to have enough time to get everything done. I like to do it as fast as I can, but I like to have enough time to get everything done. I need a whole stroke to fill the engine with intake air and fuel. I need to have a whole stroke to compress it. And then I need to have a whole stroke to make the power after we light it. And then I need another whole stroke to get the exhaust out and then start over with the intake again. Two-stroke only does it in 2 strokes. Also, I don't know where there are anymore. I mean, I'm sure, hey, Tom and Dave, I'm sure there's some 2-strokes out there that are really fast. But when you go in 2021 and you go out into the fastest cars and fastest motorcycles and the fastest racing engines and stuff, there's not a lot of 2-strokes out there. Do you guys love 2-strokes? Or are there some people in here that love 2-strokes? Yes, some of this applies, but that's not really my forte. I'm a 4-stroke guy, and I really enjoy working on them and making them run better. Okay, back to Mitch Brown and the Monster Head. Mitch Brown has been a longtime friend of mine. I met him at the drag racing school when I taught the motorcycle drag racing school or the pro stock school for the NHRA drag racing school with Frank Hawley down in Gainesville, Florida back in 93, 03, 13. We did it over 20 years, and we had 700, 800, maybe 900 students come through our class, and Mitch Brown was one of them back in the 90s. And he was a young kid. He was pretty low. He was tall, but he wasn't real heavy, and he had really long hair. And he was just a kid from Wichita, Kansas, and I liked him. I thought he was kind of cool, and he drove the bike good. And now he's top fuel motorcycle champion, and he's a partner in some projects we've done together. I don't own Monster Heads or any products, race products. I am just the guy that he was having dinner with at the Windsor Hotel in Americus, Georgia, 13 years or 12 years ago. I can't remember the exact time, but we were sitting down, and he said, I would like to have a CNC shop one day where I can build some cool stuff. I said, what would you build? And he said, well, I would like to have, everything you hear for the next few minutes will be my opinion based on my memory of how it went down. If anybody has a different memory or a different opinion, that's beautiful. And I'm thankful you do, and I'm cool. I love it. This is going to be my opinion, and this is my version of how it went down. And Mitch knows some stuff, and everybody else knows some stuff, and this is cool. So I just want to share how it came. So Mitch says, I would like to have a Hayabusa kind of head that would fit on a Kawasaki and a Suzuki, like a Z1 and a GS. And we had to spend 30 minutes talking about which one we need to spend our time on, because he's a KZ guy, man. He wanted his Kawasaki to have a 4-valve head, and he wanted it to be fast. And I was like, man, I guess we could try that, you know, because we had already worked with Richard Maskin at Dart back in before Mitch Brown time, like around 2000. He had us design a casting to run a big head for a Kawasaki and a big head for a Suzuki, and it had room to put in 2 valves or 4 valves, and that project kind of fell off when Vance and Hines came out with their Pro Stock 2-valve head back in the late teens. 1999, 98, maybe 2000, somewhere in that range. But Rick Ward was selling the Vortex head then. And it was just kind of like a back burner deal until Mitch came and said, you know what we need? We need a Hayabusa version that will fit on a GS. I said, okay, that sounds cool. I said, so how do you propose we do it? And he said, well, I got everybody in Wichita, and I know this had to be around 2008, 2009, because the aerospace industry looked like a dyno sheet with a pair of dual exhaust on it, where you just didn't have a good looking curve, man. It went down. The whole industry was down 2008, 2009, something like that. And he said, we got the people in Wichita, we have the technology, we have the machines, we have the programmers, everybody's hungry for something to do. So I said, okay, let's come up with an idea. So we started sketching on the napkin until we got a piece of paper and an ink pen and started sketching. And there was a guy working at Star Racing with me. His name was Daryl Mullis. And he was a bona fide engineer, like went to school, got some big certificate from like Georgia Tech. I mean, he's a smart guy. He knows how to do the CAD program that I did with a pencil. You know, mine was like lead poisoning pencil, and his was like, and he could make it come up. And he and I sat together for hours and hours and hours on the Star Racing dime to come up with a CAD drawing of what a 2D version of this head would look like, so that the bolt pattern would fit on this Suzuki cases, and all these valves would fit in there. And we offset the bores based on the stud pattern, so the head gasket would have room at really, really big bores. And we came up with some cool ideas of how far to offset the valves so that all the valves could fit in the middle of the bore. And we also, to make room for more valves and bigger valves, we went from a 12 millimeter spark plug down to a 10 millimeter spark plug so that there would be room for bigger valves. And then we found that the spark plug in the center of the bore was too close to the intake valve. So when you put the spark plug in the center of the chamber, center of the bore, intake valves were up on the spark plug and the exhaust valves were far away. So Mitch and I and Daryl, of course, when he was typing in the CAD program, moved the spark plug over till it had the same amount of material between all 4 valves. And then in order to get bigger valves in, like I said, he went from a 12 millimeter down to a 10. Well, this is a long story to share with you to tell you how we got here to 2021 today. Mitch made the first head. It had a lot of boo-boos and a lot of mistakes. Didn't fit good, but it ran. We put it on the engine, we put it on the dyno, and we ran it and ran it and ran it. And we found out that we put 5 pounds of crap in a 1 pound bag. I mean, we put, if you Z1 guys will understand this, we took 4 Kawasaki 900s and we put 2 Kawasaki 900 intake valves in 1 cylinder. We took 2 Kawasaki exhaust valves and put them in 1 cylinder. It was like having 2 GPZs shoved into 1 cylinder. It had 4 Kawasaki buckets. It had 4 Kawasaki valve springs, retainers, valves, everything. So it was very reliable because it was KZ900, KZ650 parts that had trillions of miles on them and their cam lobes everywhere. Kip Cam Motion, Mega Cycle. The kids at Webcam had beautiful grinds for the Z1. So we put Z1 lobes on it. We put Z1 buckets, Z1 valves, retainers, locks, keepers, springs, and put it all in one hole and did 4 of them. And when we got done drawing all that, there wasn't hardly any room for the head bolts. So we were, like I said, we were just, didn't know any better. Mitch says, okay, I'm gonna take it to a programmer and to a machine shop. So Mitch in Wichita, he hired the people, got the machines, made the prototypes, and we put it on the dyno. We had some oil leaks. We had some air leaks. We had cylinder head nuts and washers hanging into ports. We had oil passages that were overlapping into other places because the guys were parts makers, not engine builders. So we had to have a great parts maker, a great machine, a great programmer, somebody like Mitch that had the patience of Job, which y'all know him personally. You know he doesn't have patience of Job. It's just a miracle me and him lived through it. But when we got done, we sold them and sold them and sold them, and they went fast and went fast. Well, we took it to NHRA immediately and asked for them to approve it, but there was a GAN head, a Vortex head, and a Vance and Hines head, and they said, no thank you, we don't need another head. So then the V-twins started running away with the class, and the Suzukis were getting left behind, and these are my opinions. So NHRA said, well, let's give them a bigger stroke and let them go from 1500 to 1640. Then let's let them build a 1750, and then let's give them more stroke and a bigger bore, and they got them all the way up to 1850 cc's, and then they ran out of room. They said, okay, well, let's take weight off of them. Got them all the way down to 595, 600 pounds, and they got them all the way up to 1850 cc's, and they were more level because if you look back in time, you can see where Jerry Savoy was able to run 775, 774. I don't remember how fast he went back that year, but that was on the 2-valve Suzuki 1850 with the big stroke crank and the biggest bore that would fit with sleeves in it. So, long story short, long story long. Had to wait for the 4 valves. No, we had to wait for the V-twins to really, really go fast and then go back and revisit NHRA, and they finally said in 2019 that we could run the monster billet head in Pro Stock Motorcycle in 2020. So Steve Johnson ordered one, and I'm sorry, people calling me and texting me. I'm sorry, interrupting me. As long as it's not Jackie or Julie, going to the back of Tech Talk, y'all. I'm sorry. So Vance and Hines said they need a 4-valve now because they lost their Harley-Davidson deal, and eventually they would continue building the V-twins, rebadge them, rename them, change a few things, and sell them as EBRs instead of Harleys. Well, everybody didn't want that. Some people wanted a really fast Suzuki, so Vance and Hines came up with a really nice, super trick 4-valve head for the Suzukis. Well, the guys that bought them before the Vance and Hines one were legal, like Chris Bostic and Steve Johnson, they soldiered on, kept going on what they were going on. Well, now Chris has been 680s, and he's been 196 or 98, 7 miles an hour. Steve Johnson's been, flush the screen. Steve Johnson's been 670s. He's been on the pole. He's run low of the round. He's done some good work with this head. not with the Vance and Hines head, but with this head. Steve Johnson is and has always will be a Vance and Hines customer and client and friend of those guys. This does not do away with Vance and Hines. This is in addition to Vance and Hines. This is not anything otherwise. But I wanted to share with you guys, there is another source out there. You can have a billet 4-valve Suzuki head. So Travis Davis won on the Pro Mod this weekend. He went 396, and he has the monster billet head. I think he has 2 of them now. Richard Gadsden on the all motor, no wheelie bar Pro Street bike, the nitrous bike Brad Mummert has. He goes probably been 650s or maybe 640s with it, way high, 200 miles an hour. That is Mitch Brown's monster billet head. Now, the reason I'm so interested in it, a couple of reasons. I'm an old friend with Steve Johnson. He and I get along great. Mitch Brown is a partner and a very close friend of mine. And Vance and Hines and I have been oil and vinegar and Ford versus Chevy. All the Wallies I have at Star Racing have all been won instead of Vance and Hines. The Vance and Hines Wallies they had all the way through 2016 were always instead of Star Racing, and we split them up a lot. We had a lot of wins. So we're competitors. They wouldn't even make my top 10 list of who I would like to go to dinner with. But that doesn't mean I have issues with them. I'm just a competitor, just like you are. If you're in a competitive sport, you respect your competition, but they're not like your best buds. You don't like want to go to dinner with them. So anyway, Monster Head, Richard Gadsden just came on 1640 cc's. Yes, you did. 640 at 221 miles an hour. Thank you for shouting out. And I hope you get to go fast on a Pro Stock motor with the Monster Head eventually. The other reason I'm interested in this is because I had input. Mitch trusted me to come up with a way to make this crank up and run and make some horsepower. He let my team at Star Racing do the porting work and come up with all of the pieces to the puzzle to make it fast. We didn't build it, but we had a lot to do with it. So I have some personal ownership in it. I don't own anything of Mitch's, but we are partners in this project. So I am a big fan. And when you see me on Facebook and Instagram brag on Steve or Chris Bostic or any of you customers that have the Monster 4-valve billet head that Mitch Brown sells out of Monster Race Products, that's why I'm so fired up about it, because it is something that I had something to do with. And Jackie and I are very proud of the people that gave me and Mitch, this little boy from Wichita, Kansas, that I met at the drag racing school, for him to come out and win top gas races, win pro mod races with his cylinder head. Now he's a top fuel winner, and we're proud of Mitch and our involvement with that company. Now, what the Monster Head has done for us, though, in engine technology, is it has set the bar really high. It shows us how big valves can be versus bore ratio. It shows us what kind of RPM we can run versus valve size and piston speed and bore and stroke and cam timing, and how it works when you add more flow, how you adjust the cam timing to suit. And it's taught us so much. It's just been like doors just keep opening. The faster Steve Johnson and those guys are going with his billet head, the more doors open that make us go, oh my goodness, I didn't know that was even possible. I didn't know that you could use a 2-inch diameter carburetor on 28 cubic inches, 4 cylinders, makes 113 cubic inches, and it has 4 2-inch carburetors on it. And he turns it almost 14,000 RPM. I think it makes peak power around 13,000 RPM. And it makes a lot of horsepower per cubic inch. So the news, not necessarily the news, I wanted to tell you all, people wrote me today. I asked what subject you'd like to cover today, and a lot of people came up with some great ideas, and I wrote them down, and I am going to go back into that and look at it some more. But I wanted to give you the news. Look, when you watch on TV and you see Alan Reinhart and the TV guys are talking about who's going the mile an hour, Matt Smith's going 200, and Vance and Hines is going 200, and all these people are going 200, that's because they have a ton of power. And right now Steve is doing good because he's managing his power he has, and his ETs are really good versus this mile an hour because his efficiency is up. And I'm going to talk, people ask me all the time about 60-foot times. And I drew a little picture of a drag strip, and I'm going to change this camera over if y'all hang on with me just a minute. Please stay tuned. Notice this screen says Tech Talk Tuesday number 103. I can't even hardly believe that, but it is true. Tech Talk 103. All right, what I drew here is a graph. No, I didn't. I drew a little drawing of the drag strip. I've got the pre-stage light, start line, and then the guard beam. Guard beam doesn't have anything to do with your time, but if you ever look at a track and it has 3 infrared beams across the starting line, with it has an emitter and a receiver, you can see that there were 3 clocks there. There are 3 photocells is what they call it, but they're infrared beams. You got a pre-stage, which only tells you that you're close to the starting line. When you light the pre-stage up, this light lights up, says you're 5 or 6 inches away from the starting line. The guard beam is if you're cheating or your vehicle is still dragging the lights when you take off, the guard beam will start the clocks for you so you don't get some weird ETs. And I drew a dummy picture of the Christmas tree with the pre-stage lights, the stage lights, then the 6 ambers that come on, and then the green light here, and I didn't make it green. Well, look at there. There you go. There's the green lights. And I don't have a yellow marker, so I couldn't mark the yellow ones. But I want you to see the 60-foot clock, 60 foot from the starting line. Then you got the 330 clock, 660, 1,000 foot, and the 1320. The 660 has a mile-an-hour clock also, 66 feet before the 660 clock. It starts another timer that tells it how long it took to go 66 feet at half track, which tells you the 1/8 mile an hour. Also, the 1,000 foot is where Top Fuel and Funny Car and Nitro cars race to the 1,000 foot and they shut it off. That's why you see them look like they're letting off early when you watch it on TV. Pro stock car, pro stock motorcycle, and the sportsman classes all go 1,320 feet. There's also 2 stripes at the finish line. This is in, say, left lane only. One is 66 feet before the finish line, and the other one is the finish line. And that little clock through there is also another clock that tells you how long it took to go 66 feet at the finish line so that you can get the mile an hour down here. So when somebody tells you what the mile an hour they went in a quarter, that's only with the 66-foot clock, averaging them over that time right there. The 1/8 mile clock, when it says you go a 430 at 160 miles an hour, this little area, the 66-foot area, is the amount of time it measures, how long it took you to travel those 66 feet to tell you the mile an hour. I know some of this is a little bit boring for you, but I want you to also notice that the 60-foot clock, it takes a long time. It takes us 1 second to go 60 feet. And then it takes it 2.8 seconds to go 330, and it takes 4-something seconds to go 660. It takes 5.7 seconds to go 1,000 foot, and then it takes 6.7 or 6.8 seconds to go 1,320 on a pro stock motorcycle. What I wanted to tell you is the motorcycle's sitting dead still here. And when you take off, it's going 60 feet. It's going somewhere around 55 miles an hour. It might be going 75 miles an hour. But the point I wanted to explain to you guys today was the 60-foot clock is 60 feet. You know, you understand what I'm saying? It's not 1 foot. It's not 10 feet. If it was a 10-foot clock, it would look like this. If it was a 30-foot clock, it would be here. If it's a 40-foot clock, it would be here. So when somebody's working on their 60-foot time, that is from 0 to 60 miles an hour. It might be 70 miles an hour. There's people out there that have the data to back this up. It might be 60 miles an hour. It might be 50 miles an hour. MPH. Can y'all see that? Okay. This is what we've learned about a 60-foot. You can go 1.0 60 foot and go through the 60-foot clock at 50 miles an hour. You can go a 1.0 60 foot and go through the 60-foot clock at 70 miles an hour. But this time will still be the same. But you could go through here at 20 different mile an hour. Your rear wheel chart could look like dead hooked from the 2-step dead hooked, and the rear wheel chart will look dead hooked. Or you could have the RPM go like this, and you could have your rear wheel chart look like this. But you can all still have the same 60-foot time. Dead hook, smoking a tire. You can do it. It can be done. You can do it. You can go. But this is what we've learned about this right here. If you go through the 60-foot clock at 10 miles an hour, quicker, more speed at the 60-foot clock than your competition, you have a really hard time running him down at the other end. So you want to be going really fast when you get here. Even if your 60-foot time isn't the greatest, because if you go... This is what my point is. If you go 6.7 in a quarter mile, 60 foot, which everybody talks about and spends so much time talking about, and then second place, they talk about the 330. those are very small parts of this 6-second ET. 1 second is a small part of this 6.7 ET. Why is that important? Well, in order to win this race, you got to get to this stripe first. If you're racing quarter mile. If you're racing eighth mile, you got to get to this stripe first. And it takes a lot of pieces to do it. The perfect 60-foot that we see all the time looks like a bell-shaped curve. And this is the perfect time. Most of us are on this side, not enough wheel speed. Most of us are on this side. Most of us are too much wheel speed. You got the more G-force, less G-force. And we're either almost perfect on the low side of the bell, or we're almost perfect on the high side of the bell. And the perfect number's right here. Very seldom do we see the perfect number. And they are not exactly the same. If you do, say, 1.05 on both sides of this bell, one of them's going to be fast when you get to the 60-foot clock, and one of them's going to be slow when you get to the 60-foot clock, even though the ET is the same. Let me try and do it with my hands for somebody that's struggling with my numbers. We're going to go 60 feet. I'm going to get out here and go 60 feet, or I'm going to get out here and go 60 feet, and then this guy's going to run me down until we run across 60 foot together. It can happen. If you're in a foot race, like a 100-yard dash, and two guys take off, one of them gets way in front and gets tired, and the other one comes from behind, and they still get the same time, the same 100-yard dash time. That's two different things. Whoever gets here first, you can do it with the best time, but you also have to leave first and get there first. I know those are basic numbers that I was talking about. Before I run all the way out of time, I want to show you an example of some of these numbers, and I want to start off talking about something that we haven't talked about. There's things on this sheet right here. This is just a run from Denver. This was Steve Johnson and Matt Smith. Matt Smith, this was his slowest run. I think he might have went 14 a couple times. But right here, he did go like 7:10 or 7:11 or something. He was really fast all weekend. This particular run, I wanted to show you a couple things. Steve went a 106. Matt went 109, 60 foot. Steve went 295. Matt went 297, 330. 660, Steve went 954. Matt went 454. And Matt went 456. Can y'all see these numbers okay? The mile an hour was 153 for Steve, 154 for Matt. 1,000 foot, Steve got there with a 593, and Matt got there with a 595. But at the stripe, Steve was okay, 613.0 to Matt's 114.5. Matt was making this up all the way down the track. Now, Matt got there first because on that run, Steve had a 055 reaction time, and Matt had triple zeros, dead nuts perfect. This run was pretty close to perfect, but it wasn't his best run of the weekend. If he had gone to 7:11 with this reaction time, nobody would have ever beat him. He'd win all the races if that was possible. And this also, please remember, fans and interested parties, this is at Denver where it's 9,000 or 10,000 foot corrected altitude. These engines are down 20% horsepower. If they got 400 horsepower, that means they're down 80 horsepower. So the reason why these guys are going in the sevens when they normally go 670s and 680s is because they're at the mountain. There's way less oxygen. I think there's 18 to 19% less oxygen at a 90-degree day at Bandimere Speedway in the summertime. And those are just approximations. But I wanted to share this difference with you. But this one, none of these are really. I mean, this is a Matt Smith Racing SNS V twin, and this is a Steve Johnson Racing with Mitch Brown's monster head, and he was able to make some really good laps. And I see we're out of time, and I wanted to get you thinking about something really interesting. I want you to start thinking about the incrementals, how long it took to go from the 60 foot to the 330. Okay, this is called an incremental time. This, the 295, the 454, the 593, and the 713. Those are incremental times. I want you to look at this new one called travel time. How long did it take for him to go 330 feet from the 60 foot? Not from the starting line, but from the 60 foot. How long did it take him to get to the 330? And it's a different number than you think it is. It's a 295.1 minus a 106.5, and it leaves you with a travel time to go between these clocks. This is a really cool one right here. This one, the ET of 713 and the 1,000 foot here, if you should track 593 from a 713, it's a certain amount of time. It takes 1.2 seconds, almost always 1.1 to 1.2 seconds to go from the 1,000 foot to the ET. And the guys that are really into this and tune on this stuff, they work on those. They look at the incrementals because everybody can see this, but there is no one that offers, except for you pay special extra for it and create a spreadsheet where you can get travel times. And that's a subject for another day. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really enjoyed it. Tech Talk number 103 is in the books. I see you guys clocking out. But listen to me. Next week, our next Tech Talk Tuesday will be Tech Talk number 104, and it will be our 2-year anniversary of doing this every Tuesday at 6 o'clock Eastern. Thank you all. May God bless all you guys. And thank you for listening to my rambling and my stories. Amen.